This is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, welcome to my program on July 1st, 2018. We are coming to you live streaming on Kardec Radio. Please get all your friends to look at Kardec Radio on Facebook page. There's also Kardec Radio website. We are also on Kardec Radio itself. It's an app that you can download on your iPhone or your Android phone. It's all for free. Go to your App Store or your Play Store and just put in Kardec, Kardec Radio. You can download it and you can hear us 24 hours a day. And of course, here on Kardec Radio Facebook page, there are many people who are live streaming wonderful information about Spiritism, and come here for all your Spiritist needs. I also have another Facebook page, Spiritism, the Spirits and the Spirits Around Us, all about Spiritism. Again, people post events, post questions. People will supply answers all about Spiritism. And then lastly, on my website, my blog, nwspiritism.com, where I have many articles about Spiritism. I have links to my books. And of course, everything I'm talking about tonight is all based upon what? Allan Kardec, who is the codifier of Spiritism. In the 1850s, Allan Kardec codified a series of messages from different spirits to different mediums. He made sure all the messages were similar from different mediums, and he codified what was sent to us by the Spirit of Truth. The Spirit of Truth was, of course, talked about in the New Testament by Jesus said the Spirit of Truth would send us more information. Now, our program tonight is about spirit assistance. And why am I talking about this? Well, what I have done is I've written a series of 3 books, and we're talking about the 3rd book now. This is How We Are Guided by Spirits. And it was all derived from a series of communications from the other world to the Reverend G. Val Owen. And tonight I'm talking about spirit assistance. He told us so much. And again, it all started with Allan Kardec, and then there were many Spiritist authors, Leon Denis, Francisco C. Xavier, Yvonne Pereira, Divaldo Franco, and more. Just wonderful books. They've written just excellent books. And in fact, if you go to my website, nwspiritism.com, you'll see a picture of Allan Kardec. And Allan Kardec, you click on that picture, it'll take you to the EDI CEI bookstore, and you will be able to buy all sorts of Spiritist books. Of course, you can find them all on Amazon.com also. And if you put in Allan Kardec, you put in his name and then, space PDF, you'll find his books on PDF also. That's how I found Allan Kardec. But tonight we're talking about the communications from the Reverend G. Val Owen, who was in a Anglican Church of England vicar, reverend to many people, in the early 1900s. Of course, then he started getting messages from spirits. He wrote about these messages. He wrote about what was revealed in them. And as we all know, what was his reward? He was kicked out of the church because he did not adhere to their doctrine. He exposed the doctrine that we are all immortal souls. He told us so much. Hi, Rosalind. He told us so much. He told us everything we need to know about our immortal life. And now tonight we're gonna go directly into spirit assistance. When we look upon guardian angels as kindly manifestations of spirits who shine, have wings, and smile lovingly down upon us at all times with unbounded, unconditional love, that we are forgiven all wrongs, all malicious deeds, everything, no matter what. All we need to do is to drop to our knees and ask for a pardon, then heaven's gate will be open to us. Well, it's nice to know that, but the truth really is a bit more complex. Yes, all is forgiven, but not all penalties are withdrawn. Yes, we are loved unconditionally, but it's tough love fashioned to shape us, to make us more responsible. Yes, heaven gates is always open, but we have to earn entrance. What we are told is we are on earth to perfect ourselves, to remove the blemishes, the bad, the primitive characteristics, and replace that with love and forgiveness, charity, honesty, all with good emotions, good characteristics. Spirits, guardian spirits, who have been, hello, Sol Souza, good evening to you. Spirits who have been in our shoes, who know the little lies we tell ourselves. We all do that, do we not? Who recognize our desires and weaknesses, work on our behalf to lift us out of the mire of our own normal human behavior. They attempt to enable us not to always look at any sideways glance as an insult, to not envy what others possess, and to not obsessively make plans for revenge of perceived wrongs. To not grab any opportunity to enrich ourselves, to not lose our temper at the slightest provocation. We are truly watched and guided to stay true to our original plan for our life, a blueprint created by higher and concerned spirits with our input to experience the pain and disappointments we have caused others, as well as supplying opportunities to hone our skills, broaden our outlook, and accumulate more wisdom. Sometimes this is tough. Sometimes this is heartbreaking. Sometimes this is tragic, and sometimes it's lots of fun and pleasurable. But it's all about our edification. Hence, our guardian spirits and other spirits, as they are called in to give assistance, may exert negative influence to stop us from committing wrongful deeds. While at different times, they may apply positive pressure to urge us to perform an action, create something new to move the world, or simply fill in a mission component to a problem that has been vexing us. They are always there. They are always giving us help. They're always listening. The tools guardian and high spirits possess and the techniques which are employed to measure, evaluate, and inspire us are partially uncovered in what communication was given to Reverend G. Owen. Resources, time, and effort are deployed on our behalf on a planetary scale which would dwarf any human endeavor. The combined might of the Axis and Allied armies during World War II are nothing compared to the row after row of angelic battalions dedicated to our welfare. It certainly may not seem so at many, many times. Literally, billions of high spirits from all levels of heaven circling the earth, plus untold number of spirits residing in advanced spheres in other planets, are toiling on our behalf. Every minute there are thousands of daily dramas, whereupon spirits are trying to guide individuals to make the right choice, as low spirits fight to retain their comrades to remain tied to materialism and selfishness. In our trek for purity of spirit and heart, we are meant to walk through fire. Each misstep causes a teardrop from the eyes of our guardians. They live with disappointment and hope. Every day is a battle. Like victories may seem few and far between, they are intensely celebrated, for each success means there's one more soldier to add to the army of Christ. Above all else, as you hear the revelations brought from the spirits who spoke via mind to mind with the Reverend G. Owen, remember that we are cherished, loved, and guided with the utmost kindness. Every action taken on, for, and to us are always meant for our own edification. From the petty theft, the crooked politician, the narcissistic self-promoter, the shy person who plods through daily life, the doctor, the parent who toils and sacrifices for their children, all are loved with equal passion. While each incarnated on earth may be at different levels of spiritual maturity, with the help of our guardian angels, we shall eventually all end up pure of heart and ready to lend our assistance to a struggling soul on a planet who is looking to improve. The journey may not be easy. The journey may be very, extremely difficult, tiring, exhausting, but it's all there meant for our improvement. Now let's start with some of the examples of how we are helped. Now, and let's talk about as we pass over. The spirit world helps souls who just pass over from life here on earth in a physical body incarnate to discarnate, right? Errant spirits, a spirit who is not in a physical body. So I previously talked about the help given to the dying, the souls who passed over, and to the other side. And there's a great series of books by the spirit Andre Louise, psychographed by Francisco Chico Xavier. And this subject is discussed from many angles, right? NDEs, everything. And the caring and effort to help people make the transition is considerable. The subject is also talked about in Reverend Owen's book. In this section, in section The Lowlands of Heaven, his mother talks about the assistance given to the newly dead. So you can say, well, why am I talking about this? This is when we die, not when we're alive. But actually, when you die, physical death is really when you're born. You're born again. We are born in the physical body. We live in this tight little diving suit. But then the real birth, the birth where we really want to be in the spirit realm, is when we can get rid of this physical body. And that's where it starts. Now, this is what his mother said. Now, let us see if we can impress you to write a few words of the conditions which we found here when we arrived. The conditions, that is, of all those who pass over here when they first arrive. They are not all of an equal degree of spiritual development, of course, and therefore require different treatment. Many, as you know, do not realize for some time the fact that they are what they would call dead, because they find themselves alive and with a body, and their previous vague notions of the after-death state are not by any means lightly thrown away. That's what she said. So as we have seen in spiritualist literature, among those who have slight spiritual inclination or knowledge are quite widely confused. Even those who are spiritual and practice one of the religions are often taken aback. Most people when they die are taught that when we become another being or when we are sent to heaven right away in the form of an angel, we cast off not only our bodies, but our basic characteristics are transformed into graceful and noble entities. Imagine the surprise when they find out we are who we are. So then Valen takes us through the regular process to awaken, to wake up a confused soul who has come over to the spirit realm. This is what she says. The first thing to do then, with such as those, is to help them to realize the fact they are no more on earth, no more in the earth life. And to do this, we employ methods. One is to ask them whether they remember some friend or relative. And when they reply that they do, but he's dead, we try and enable them to see this particular spirit who, appearing alive, should convince the doubter that he is really passed over. This is not always the case, for the ingrained fallacies are obstinate, and so we try another method. We take him to some scene on earth with which he is familiar, and we show him those whom he have left behind and the difference in his state and theirs. Let me stop there within this quote. I think this is what happened when my mother died. She had died, it was like, we were woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and she was in the hospital. She was going to get a stent, pacemaker in her heart. And they told us that, she died, and we were going to then, quick, go and get everything, done and the next morning. But then I woke up early, and I walked into her room, and I could just feel her presence, right? It was just, there's just no doubt in my mind. My mother was there, and I felt her so strong. And I thought for a second, I said, Mom, what are you doing here? You should be in heaven. You have passed over. And then I felt her gone. And that must have been what they had done with her. Is she probably, passed over in the middle of the night. And they said, okay, where am I? And they said, well, you're dead. Okay. And then he says, okay, we'll take you to your home and we'll show you. And she must have been in her room thinking, okay, I'm in my room. And then I come in and I say, Mom, you've passed over. Go to Dad. Go see Dad, right? So that's probably, this is what's so interesting. When we have these experiences and then we read about them in spiritualist literature, it just tells us how true this is. So we finish off with what you're saying. So then, she said, of course, just to review, we take them some scene on earth which he is familiar and show them whom he has left behind and the difference in his state and theirs. If this should fail, then we bring to his recollection, the last experiences he underwent before passing and gradually lead them up to when he fell asleep. And then we try to connect up that moment with his awakening here. All these endeavors often fail, more often than you would imagine, for character is built up year by year, and the ideas which go to help in this building become very firmly embedded in his character. And also we have to be very careful not to overtax him or it would delay his enlightenment. Sometimes, however, in the case of those who are more enlightened, they realize immediately and they are passed into the spirit land, and then our work is easy. So, what she'd say, the last thing that most of us expect to be when we die is the continuation of what we were before death. Andre Luis was to explore exactly how a spiritually aware person felt after their death. In the book Workers of the Life Eternal, psychographed by Chico Xavier, Andre Luis is given permission to ask questions to a person named Demas. He had just recently passed away. Now, Demas was an untiring medium, a spiritist medium who worked for the good of incarnates and discarnates alike. Hence, Andre was part of a spirit team who was sent to help Demas disconnect from his physical life. It is worth noting that one of the main obstacles was the desire of his family for him to recover and once more be part of their life. The thoughts emanating from Demas's wife and children kept him tied to earth. The spirit team had to resort to the camouflage of making Demas appear to recover, so his family would leave the spirit team a few hours of peace to begin the process to bring Demas over to the spirit realm. Let me stop there for a second. How many times have we seen that? When someone, is dying, their family's all around them, and they're just, they're so depressed. They say, no, come back. We want you to stay. And then they get better. And people kind of, they let their anxieties and their sadness kind of off themselves. They kind of get back to normal a little bit, and then that person expires. That's all done by the spirit world. Because our thoughts, remember what I've said in so many things, our thoughts are action. And you say, no, I don't want her to die. I don't want him or her to die. Please, aunt, whatever, don't die. And you're actually doing a disservice to this person. What you need to do is someone's really close to death is pray for them and say, God bless you. I hope you make the transition easy. Please wake up refreshed. Know that we love you here on earth and please visit us or whatever you want. But don't hold them artificially, because your thoughts are actually holding that person, and you're actually making it harder for that person to go over to the other side. So we should be more like, I don't know if anybody who's hearing me ever been at an Irish wake, right? Half of my family was Irish, and it was, American Irish, but you'd go to the wake and everybody was happy. Oh, he's dead. He's in a better place. That is really kind of the attitude one should have, not gnash their teeth and hold them to earth. Let them into the spirit world. Let them get to the next level. Let them get to the next period, the next episode of their life, where they're going back in the spirit world. They can learn, they can analyze what they did, and they can plan for their next life to even do better on earth the next time. So let's go back to Demas. So upon his death, Demas was placed in the coffin. And next, the coffin was taken to the cemetery, where the funeral procession included at least 20 discarnates, so 20 spirits, right? Including the newly departed. Demas was right there with him. He was walking with him, seeing his own coffin. Imagine that, right? At the cemetery where the coffin containing the remains of Demas is being buried, Andre asked the director of his little group if he can pose some questions to Demas. The director gives his permission to explore more what it feels like to be newly dead. And Andre turns to Demas. He says, who's now a spirit. He goes, hey, are you still experiencing any physical pain? And Demas says, well, I still have a clear impression of the body I've just left behind. But I've noticed that in wishing to remain close to my own loved ones and to continue on where I've been so many years, I relive all the suffering that I endured. However, when I resigned myself to accepting the higher designs, I immediately felt lighter and comforted. Despite the short amount of time that I have been awake, I have already been able to make such an observation. Is that how interesting? See, when he's pulled, it doesn't feel like it. But when he lets himself know he's somewhere else, he feels better. Then Andre asks, what about the five senses? And Demas says, they're in perfect working order. And Andre then says, well, are you hungry? And Demas says, I actually can tell that my stomach is empty, and I would be glad if I had something to eat. But this physical desire is neither uncomfortable nor torturing. Well, are you thirsty? Yes, although I do not suffer because of it. As usual, Andre, a wonderful series of books, and actually read his first book, No Solar. And there's actually a movie, No Solar. You can look it up. It's Astral or Celestial City. So Astral City, look up Astral City. It's in Portuguese, but with subtitles. And it is a great movie. My wife and I, we watch at least once a year. You cannot beat that. So I encourage you, go to the EDICI bookstore. I'll go to my blog, nwspiritism.com. You can see it in the text below, and you'll click on the picture of Allan Kardec again, And you'll see his first book, No Soul Lar, which means our home in Portuguese. And at least, either if you don't want to read it, but at least see watch the movie. It's wonderful. So let me get back to Demas. So those are the questions that Andre asked. Now let's go back. Actually, I should have said to Val Owen's mother. She tells us of an actual case she was on. She and a group were sent to assist a woman who was on the cusp of passing over. And they arrived to see the dying lady surrounded by sad friends. All were extremely sorry to see her leave the earth. And she starts thusly. She fell asleep and the cord of her life was severed by her watching friends. Let me stop there again. The cord of her life. In NDEs, and this is where Spiritism is very interesting. NDEs, the people say, yeah, I saw this silver cord, and Spiritism tells us this silver cord connects it's called this, it's kind of part of the paraspirit. You are composed of the spirit, the paraspirit, and the physical body. The spirit is your spirit brain, right? Everything. The paraspirit kind of envelops your body and connects your spirit to your physical brain. And you have to look at it like it's a connection. But remember, you can't remember everything you know about your past life because that connection only allows certain things. And it only has so much capacity because why? Your physical brain has only so much capacity. So as you dream, as you go at night, as you sleep, you can go anywhere in the universe, but that cord is always attached. That's what it looks like to you. Now remember, we're actually in a logical universe, and therefore the cord has it has the ability to go on to infinity, most likely. So let me keep saying what she's saying. She lay there perfectly happy and content until she began to wonder why these strange faces were around her in places of the nurses and friends she had last seen. She inquired where she was, and when she was told, a look of wonder and of yearning came over her face. She asked to be allowed to see the friends she had left. This was granted her, and she looked on them through the veil and shook her head sadly. If they could only know how free from pain I am and comfortable. Can you not tell them? We tried to do so, but only one of them heard, I think, and he only imperfectly, and soon put it away as a fancy. We took her from that scene, and after she had somewhat gained strength, to a children's school where her little boy was. He must have passed before her. And when she saw him, her joy was too great for words. He had passed over some few years before and had been placed in the school where he had lived ever since. Then the child became instructor to his mother, and this sight was a pretty one to see. He led her about the school and the grounds and showed her the different places and his schoolmates, and all the while his face beamed with delight, and so did the mother's. We left her a while, and then when we returned, we found those two sitting in an arbor, and she was telling him about those she had left behind, and he was telling her of those who had come before, of whom he had met, of his life and in the school. And it was as much we could do to tear her away, with a promise that she should return soon and often to her boy. That's what she was told. That's what G. Valwyn's mother told G. Valwyn. Now, to those who have read that the mother is taken from her child, do not worry. She was taken to a place where she could recuperate after release from physical life. This process is intended to calm the stresses of coming back into the spirit form and to make her ready to restart her life as a spirit. They will not be split up. You're connected with your friends and family wherever you are. And there are many examples which are quite like the one above in the books by Chico Xavier. And from the 1850s, when Allan Kardec codified Spiritism, again, Allan Kardec, the Spirits book, this is what you want to read first. This is important. Now, just talking about that, I have written other books, besides this one, how we are guided by Spirits Book 3. I've written other books, and you'll see those on my website. Explore Your Destiny, all about the heaven, the different levels around the earth. Why are we here? I've written the book, The Case for Reincarnation. I have Spiritism 101, many different books. All the spirit world talks to us. What I've done is I have tried to take everything I've read in English so far about Spiritism and then really classified them. And kind of as I've done is classified from Reverend G. Valwyn, is, here's all these things in this central theme, reincarnation. What does everyone say? And I try to bring them in there. And I use different authors and different spiritist messages to explain everything about that. So it all depends on your on how you want to learn, right? I've known some people who say, I've read the spirit books and I couldn't get into it. And then I said, well, try, No Solar. And I like No Solar. Or try my book, The Case for Reincarnation. Oh, okay, this is more helpful. Or they didn't, they wanted something else. So I've tried. The reason I wrote my books is to try to give a little different angle, and kind of categorize and try to bring things together, and then show how different authors, even from Francisco Xavier or psychograph to Valdo Franco, actually different spirits who talk to these mediums, how they approach the same themes but little different angles, right? And hopefully that would help you really understand and dive deeper into Spiritism. So, let me give you an example. So, independently of any communications from spirits about helping the dead, I had a series of emails with a medium who had retained memories of her life in the spirit realm. And somehow she read my blog and she was fascinated how close Spiritism was to her own experiences. Then, after reading the blog, she said, okay, I'm going to read the book No Solar, which talked about spirit guides and who assisted the recently passed. And the team of spirit helpers, right, who, responsible for rescuing Andre Luis, the spirit who dictated the book to Chico Xavier about his death, time in the lower zone, and subsequent life in the celestial city. And she read this and she goes, and this is what she said, this is what she wrote to me, goes, my most recent adventure involved Chico Xavier's No Solar. As someone who remembers being a helper, this is a medium, right? She remembers being a helper. I'll carry on. It was exciting to see home identified. I thought I was the only one who knew about and remembered home. I must have worked there for hundreds of years helping spirits. Then I came back here to learn some new things for a couple of short lifetimes, plus this one. Anyway, I want to vouch for home as reality. The details about its structure might vary, but it is an amazing place of love. Okay, again. Oh, let me finish. And from home, you can access any place on earth. It's not uncommon for people who've reached the helper level to enter the dreams of the embodied, which can be done directly from home to offer help and advice. Okay, here's a medium. And this is there's good and bad things about the internet, right? We all know the bad things, but the good things is we're getting this information out to people. And they're becoming aware of Spiritism, and they're becoming aware of what that means. And as this wonderful person said, oh my God, there's other people who are helpers, right? She now knows that she wasn't alone. She understands Spiritism is telling her these things. Once again, a person who hadn't been aware of Chico's books or Spiritism finds verification of their own ideas and memories. She did write to say that unlike Andre's experience, where he spent time in the lower zone, not all people experience this frightening episode after death. But before I go there, I do want to say that even in this book that I've written, the spirit world talks to us. It's 12 accounts of near-death and other experiences. I take what they have done and show how Spiritism explains. And in fact, I've talked to some of these people that I've written about in my book, and they said, "Oh, I can't believe now I understand what happened," right? Because I interpret what happened to them, and they had one interpretation, but I try and expand it and explain what the spirit world was trying to tell them. And they go, "Oh my God, now I understand this." This is where Spiritism just brings everything together: near-death experiences, your own experiences of how your aunt was notified of another aunt's death. I mean, all these things are explained by Spiritism. So now she also kept writing me. And again, what she said is this is what she said. She says, one item I feel needs a minor correction regarding the purgatory-like experience of Andre Luis. Prior to his going home, he experienced a dark, scary landscape. But I want people to know that the arrival zone is different for everyone. It will basically be your own mind-created object with sudden or unexpected deaths. People often don't know they have crossed over. They look for familiarity, and their own mind creates that for them. The good news is that someone like me, what I used to do anyway, will meet you where you are and help you through the process. Now, of course, she is completely correct. In Andre Luis's book, there are many instances of spirit helpers assisting people right from their deathbeds and other locations. Andre Luis was in the lower zone of the umbrella, as we referred to in Portuguese, because he was an unconscious suicide. In the case of suicides, the spirit who takes his or her own life is generally obligated to remain in the umbrella, the lower zone, until such time that their normal death would have occurred. Hence, the spirit world frowns on people leaving the earthly campus before they are dismissed. In Andre's case, he didn't deliberately kill himself, but he allowed his behavior, drinking, and also he had syphilis, to cut short his life. Hence, he unconsciously committed suicide. The second lesson is not only must we finish the classes assigned to us, but we have to take care of the materials we are given, our bodies. She then conveys, she wrote to me, more of her recollections. This is what she said. It's fascinating because she's independently verifying things that Spiritism told us without any knowledge of Spiritism. I remember many instances of having to adjust my vibration to see what the new arrival was seeing. People often see their place of work or their home or the beach or hell if they think that's where they're going. I had to help them through that. So, for instance, a man wanted to find his office, so I helped him. And while we located his office, we talked. At some point when the time is right, I'd always ask, do you remember what you're doing just before you met me here? No. We stop right there again. That's exactly what Jiva Owen's mother said. And of course, this medium hasn't even read that yet, right? This is even before I wrote my book about what Jiva Owen, right? So here again, we have these independent verifications. I'll go on. This conversation would eventually lead to the realization that they had passed on to the next life. Then and only then could I lead them to the home for what amounted to a sessions with a social worker examining their lives. It wasn't judgmental. It was more like, what went well? What could have been better, etc. And sometimes I felt bad when people were sent back, which would only happen after the counselor and person both agreed that this was for the best. Hence the explanation of MDEs. Another I remember was a very take-charge upper-class kind of man who mostly sneered and barked orders at me. And as he tried to find his way to familiar surroundings, I just smiled and helped. And eventually the question, the realization, and then we'd go home. It's always home. So again, what she has written is not only verified by other accounts in spiritualist literature, but these types of friendly encounters after the fact life reviews are a theme in many people's NDEs, near-death experiences. So I wrote her back and I said, that last person, that guy who barked orders, that could have been me, because before my rough edges were softened by discovery spiritism, although my wife might have a different view. I could see myself trying to order spirits around, do my bidding, thinking that I had to take charge of every situation. And then she replied about her experience in existing this bombastic gentleman. This is what she wrote me. Because time doesn't mean much when you're home, but the incident I referred to was probably in the 1800s maybe. The gentleman was a victim of an accident on a sailing ship and found himself on the shore looking out at the water. He saw me and demanded I summon a carriage to take him into town. He wanted to get in touch with his family and tell him what happened. It was kind of surly in a way that people who expect others to jump when they speak tend to be. So I explained in a loving and compassionate way that his transportation would be along soon. And why don't we talk while we wait? So I just laughed as already because I said, oh my God, this would be me. I'd be an idiot like this guy. So he complained about the lack of service and general incompetence of others, along with my perceived lack of helpfulness. And we sat on the hillside and waited. And he talked a bit of his life. I don't remember the details though. Eventually he calmed down, though still frustrated. And I asked the question, do you remember what you're doing just before you met me here? He told me about being on the ship and how it heeled over and he got knocked in the water, he thought. I said, do you remember how you got here? He goes, no, I don't remember. I swam to shore would be my guess. Well, that's interesting. Why aren't you wet? I don't know. I dried off. Really? When did that happen? And so on. Eventually a light clicked on. He said, did I die? He goes, and she said, yes, your feelings are true. Listen to them. You can see this place is not where you were. You don't know how you got here, and this will tell you what you want to know. He says, what happens now? Come, I'll show you. I stood out and reached out to him. He stood up and took my hand, and as we turned away from the sea, a city he had not seen before seemed to rise up from before us. Oh, hi from Abadania. And he says, and then she said, we're going home. Come. And as we walked to home together, where he was met by a counselor who took over from there. Home was simply there when he was ready to see it. Now, this talented medium's account of her work in the spirit world is inspiring and comforting. Knowing that we are surrounded by such benevolence and love should give us all the courage to continue our struggles in our daily lives. Spiritism is arranging these messages, recollections, books to notify us what our lives beyond our mere physical existence means, right? The Reverend G. Vaughn was selected to send volumes of great detail concerning life in the spirit world to England in the 1920s, right after the horrible tragedy of World War I, which people thought of the Great War, the war to end all wars, since no one could conceive of losing so many young men again. The medium I conversed with told me that her story in 2015, 95 years after the publication of Beyond the Veil. Spiritism told us the great secret that when you pass, we are still ourselves in the 1850s. In the span of 165 years, the message has stayed the same. At the end of the day, we should realize that we are on earth for a purpose as we go about our pre-planned life with trials custom made for our benefit. Now, it's all about helping an adult. Now, let me talk about helping a child to pass over. Think about the tragedy of that, or think how people feel when a child passes over. It's just the most heartbreaking because they're just the innocent, loving little things. And in this book, right, How We Are Guided by Spirits, there's also information about how children are helped. So the spirit Arnell, who's a pretty high spirit, who would talk to the Reverend G. Vaughn, he tells of a time when he and a young spirit, Habdi, who was, still in a young type body because he'd gotten over as a child also, and he was maturing in the spirit world once again, helping them restart, was called to assist the transitioning of a child from the earth to the spirit life. This is what Arnell says. So we went without delay and came upon them where they were gathered about the bed of a little girl child. She was of some 6 years old. I could see that she was about to come hitherwards. The home was that of a man of moderate wealth. He was not rich, but worked to earn his bread. The room when I arrived was full of lights in many colors. So what does that mean? Colors, lights, the emanations which come from spirits. The level of brightness denotes their spiritual purity, right? During mediums meetings I've attended, I've heard some mediums talk about how bright it was a particular spirit. They knew then that they were in the presence of a high spirit. They could see and feel the calming vibrations surrounding them just by being in the same area as one who lives at the most harmonious level. Arnell shared the story with the Reverend G. Vaughn, and he wrote of this account in the book 5 Outlines of Heaven. And G. Vaughn received this message in 1920. So Arnell tells us more about the parents of this little girl. There were but few strains of dullness in their auras, in their spiritual auras. The woman was not quite so spiritual as the man, but both were very good people. Only as the child grew weaker and they began to understand that she was slipping beyond their grasp, there gathered about them colors more somber and the radiance became more dim. Their faith began to fail somewhat, their faith in the goodness of God. They were earnest souls, however, and this is why these high beings had come down to help them in this dark in this dark hour. There were one man and 2 women spirits tending the child. They were there to see that all went well with her in her passing. To them I led Habdi, that's the younger spirit, who was more of a boy aura at that time. The company who had called me, meanwhile, stood in a group aside and concentrated upon the man and his wife to help them. So, what she's telling us, the spirit realm takes special care of children when they pass over the veil. Their love for the more innocent creatures among us is boundless. Benevolent spirits help children from all environments, even those raised in a household devoid of spirituality. Their attention is not limited to children who are leaving the physical life, but even the children who have had near-death experiences. And just like the spirits who requested Habdi to come and help them with another child, the spirit realm knows that children seeing other children feel more comforted at certain times. There's a woman named Sandy. She had a near-death experience when she was 5 years old. Years later, she wrote an account of her NDE, or near-death experience. Very interesting. This is what she wrote. In August of 1985, when I was only 5 years old, I was on a boat trip on a local lake. I was bitten by a mosquito and developed encephalitis. I died and drifted into a safe black void of comfort and ease. No pain, no fear. This was a place where I felt right at home. Off in the distance, I saw a very small light. It was drawing me to it. I felt myself rushing toward the light with a great amount of speed. I was not frightened. When I came into light, it represented peace and joy, but most of all, a deep, unconditional love. The light was a sparkling, glowing cloud. From inside, I heard a voice in my head, and I knew it was God. Since my parents never discussed God or took me to church, I really don't know how I knew, but I did. Furthermore, I felt like this was my real home, this place where I was with this beautiful light, which was God. I felt surrounded by light and was one with it. The feeling was like being scooped up and held by my daddy when a barking dog was biting me just a few months earlier, only more so. So what was he saying? As with so many other accounts by children, upon separation from their body, their soul is bathed in the sea of warmth. And like others, Sandy felt love. A love would saturate every pore. At the time, Sandy was a 5-year-old with no concept of the afterlife or a supreme being. Her parents never felt the urge to expose her to any type of prayer or devotion. Yet immediately as her soul rose, she knew she was in presence of a divinity. To comfort the child, another child appeared, a girl who seemed to be about 10 years old. This is what she wrote. Another beautiful light, only smaller, joined us. It was a girl about 10 years old. She looked somewhat like me. I could tell she recognized me. We hugged. He says, I am your sister. I was named after our grandmother, Willamette, who died 1 month before I was born. Our parents called me Willie for short. They were waiting to tell you about me later when you were ready. I was talking to her and she to me without words. It was too strange looking back at it, but it seemed natural at the time. She kissed me on the head. I felt her warmth and her love. Isn't that amazing? The spirit realm takes care of us when we emerge from our restricted bodies, guides your own hand to help children and assist those who have demonstrated their adherence to the golden rule. People who have lived an honest and compassionate life towards others are not left alone in the great transition back to the real world, the spirit world, where we spend the vast majority of our immortality. When Jesus declared in Luke, verse 9 and 60, let the dead bury the dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God. He wasn't, as many believe, only telling us to ignore all else and perform our duty to God. He also gave us a glimpse of how the spirit realm operates. He knew. This is what's so great about spiritism. It explains so much of what was said in the Bible. Like, so many things are parables, but spiritism is just like, okay, now I finally understand, right? Let the dead bury the dead. He knew. He knew the extent of the care the newly deceased were given. He wasn't telling us to neglect our obligation. He was telling us there's a support group around the moment our soul begins to detach from our corpse, and you're not really needed. Sandy's sister met her in the light to make her feel more comfortable and to send her a message. Her message was that she must return. Like so many other NDEs, the aura of the spirit world was enticing, as if you had dived in the sea of warm love and felt the glow of complete tranquility. And then when Sandy came back, her parents were amazed. It's like, you didn't know about Willamette? Amazing. So this is how, when you first go, like you have this feeling of love, or moments like lying on the beach, the hot rays of the sun penetrating your skin, the sound of the waves and birds mixing to create a harmony of bliss. That happens for some. Others, not so much. So, as Sandy was met by her sister, the little 6-year-old girl that Habdi was there, that Arnell was talking about, was given the same loving treatment. There are no coincidences in the spirit realm. Each death, each NDE is planned and orchestrated by the powers that watch over us. Arnell recounts the last moment of the sweet small child. This is what he says. At length, the little one breathed deeply and did not breathe again. By this time, her spirit body has risen from out of the body of the flesh and was almost free. So the 2 women attendants took her in their arms and laid her to rest for a few minutes. They roused her, and Habdi came up to her and took her by the hand and smiled upon her and kissed her upon her brow, and she called to her merrily. Soon she smiled in answer, and so hand in hand the 2 children went away, the man and the 2 women following in their wake. So the child, as all children do, followed the pleasant, intriguing path, right? It's all, they cry when they leave you, but then all of a sudden they see someone else say, okay, goodbye, right? She saw another playful friend and immediately gave over his will to his, to be led into another world where love was the oxygen they would breathe and nothing bad would ever happen to her. Even older children are carefully guided to the other side. In the book, A Message from the Teen and Spirit World by the Spirit Neo Lucio, psychographed by Francisco Chico C. Xavier, we are presented with how a young boy, Carlos, 14 years old, felt as he was passing away from a severe disease. He couldn't speak because his lungs were no longer supplying the amount of oxygen required to maintain his life. Carlos's mother and father were next to him by his bed. Other family members and the doctor were in the room waiting for his last breath. He could only think how sad everyone looked, and he wanted to help them. He began to be afraid of dying when an event occurred. This is what he wrote as he psychographed this. When he was a spirit, he psychographed this to Chico Xavier. This is what he said. When everything seemed beyond hope, something happened that grabbed my attention. A faint noise aroused my curiosity. I looked toward the doorway and saw that, in some unexplainable way, delicate flakes of a phosphorescent substance began appearing there. Those points of light seemed to be forming a fine cloak of airy gauze, and it looked like someone was moving beneath it. I was watching this oddity in amazement when the light curtain split apart and a pretty young lady appeared. I recognized her right away. She was the same lady that was in the big painting that Mom kept in the house. It was Aunt Eunice, Mom's little sister, who had died when you and I were still small. This as he's writing to his family. She was wearing a light green dress, decorated with shining lace. A beautiful radiant bluish light surrounded her, especially her head and upper body. If she were holding a hidden lamp, her dark eyes radiated unlimited sympathy and kindness. I was greatly surprised as Aunt Eunice entered the room, gave Mom a hug without Mom seeing her, and then sat down beside me and said, "Well, little Carlos, you are so brave. Are you afraid now?" If it had been any other occasion, I think I wouldn't have behaved so well because I've always heard that the dead are ghosts, and our aunt was already dead. But I was so distressed that I felt greatly comforted by her words of encouragement. I needed someone to cheer me up. I noticed Dad's nervousness, Mom's tears, and the doctor's discouragement and sadness as he sat beside me. And I concluded Aunt Eunice's good mood was just what I needed. Actually, in the good old days when I'd been well, I had heard strange stories about hauntings from the other world, which had left such an impression on me that I couldn't sleep. But Aunt Eunice couldn't inspire fear in anyone. She was beautiful and smiling, filling me with trust and optimism. So I felt alive again, although I noticed an unpleasant stiffness in my body, which I couldn't move, not even a bit. Very interesting, isn't this not? Carlos couldn't move his physical body, which would no longer be possible. He was freed of his ties to earth and taken to a shelter by his loving aunt. As Carlos was sent a caring family member to help his transition, the little 6-year-old girl was taken care of by another child who could help her accept her new world. Now, the grieving parents, right? These were good people, right? The spirits who focused their mind on the parents did so for a purpose. As their precious daughter, the love of their life, slowly faded away from embrace, both parents were permitted to glimpse an aspect of the spirit realm. The mother, sensing her child has breathed her last, was about to give way to deep emotional pain. Arnell tells us what happened next. But instead, the woman put her left hand on her bosom and, starting back, placed her right hand upon the shoulder of her husband and looked steadfastly at the place which was above the head of the bed and a little to the left of center as she viewed it. There she saw her little one looking eagerly into the laughing eyes of a boy who seemed to be talking to her of something very pleasant to think on. He was clad in cream-colored tunic belted with gold, and the little girl was much like him in her tiring. The boy had given her a beautiful spray of flowers of white and blue, which she held in one hand, and the other clasped in the hand of her young companion to give her strength. Slowly they went away, he talking and she smiling her prettiest. Then there arose from the bedside a man and 2 women in radiant dress and followed after the children. In essence, the mother was given the gift of peering into the spirit realm. She accurately saw what occurred in the other dimension. After the vision ended, she asked her husband if he saw the same thing. He didn't. He felt a different kind of otherworldliness. This is what he told his wife. I felt a strong breeze about me. It was not quite like a wind, but rather a kind of influence, a stream of influence, I might call it. It seemed to go through my very being and carry away all bitterness and sense of loss. And I heard, or seemed to hear, some voices talking together. One said somewhat after this fashion, "The boy knows the right way well and will not err away from it. We'll let him guide her, and ourselves will follow after and aid them with our strength for the journey." It was in no language I know, dear, and yet I quite understood clearly. But I saw nothing but a faint cloud of light exactly in the spot where you were looking. It seemed at first to gather about her little one, then rise above the bed and float to the left as I looked at it. That is the spot where you saw your vision, was it not? And she said, yes. And I thank God for that, for I had not been given that vision. I did not like to think what wicked thoughts I would be thinking at this moment. Then she went to him and kneeling by his chair, laid her face against her breast and burst into tears. They were a simple-minded pair, those two, and moreover, their mode of life had been such to enable these high angels to come and do service to them, nor did they deem it of so small importance as that it should not have enlisted their concern. Nay, my son, we do not reckon matters greater or lesser by the gauge in which men have made. We have our own measures, and they are more true than those of earth. Now think of this, right? Parents losing a child, but everything, there's a reason for everything. God is so loving. The spirit world is so conscious of helping us improve as a spirit, that what you may think is a horrible circumstance, this little girl sick going, that may have been a mission for her to help her parents understand God and the spirit world more. They were a simple couple, not simple in native intelligence, not simple in faith and caring, but simple as an honest and straightforward folk, whose word is their bond and always helpful to their neighbors. They came to earth. They respected their fellow beings. They didn't fall for the lure of rampant materialism. In other words, they were working hard and learning the lessons they were assigned. And such devotion and demanding toil is rewarded. Certainly not on earth, where the good and decent are often overlooked, or worse, denigrated, where steadfast couples, individuals, and families can go about their daily jobs, doing the best they can and caring for others. This is victory on earth. That is success. There was a reason for the couple to lose their child. There was a reason for the child to come and stay for only a short time on earth. Nothing was done to punish, only to benefit and instruct. No life is taken away forever. No future struck down. Since mother, father, and child are all immortal souls who are still alive at this moment and for all millennia to come. They, like you, experience a chance to grow, to mold their character, to be loving, charitable, fraternal, and honest. And in their deepest trial, the spirit world was right there beside them, working to smooth out the pain and to let the knowledge that God is good and all flows from that. So if there's anything you take away, is to know that we are given these trials and tribulations, the good, the bad, and that we intersect with so many different people, and they are all in their own trials and tribulations, and everything happens for a purpose, and that all that is watched over and helped to us, right? Everything is assistance. Everything is the spirits assist us in everything we do. They are there. They know what's going on. Sometimes they leave us alone to think about things. Sometimes they give us little thoughts in our head. Sometimes we get a phone call from Uncle Bob that kind of opens the door to what we needed to be done. Sometimes just someone on the street comes to us and tells us something. Someone gives us a book. These are all, it is as it's all called, it's synchronicity, right? That was a term coined, and it by the great psychoanalyst, and what it meant is things that happen, right? Things that happen for a purpose, that open up kind of our spiritual doors, right? Carl Jung knew that. Actually, Carl Jung had his own NDE. He had his own near-death experience. I actually wrote an article about that, and it's actually in one of my books, that he had his own near-death experience, and that let him understand the spirit world so much better. And that's why, he talked about synchronicity, these little things that happen. And they don't happen out of just mere coincidence. They happen for a reason. They happen to take us one step, to let us know that we're immortal beings, but there's something that's saying, okay, let's get you back on the right track. Let's get you back where you're ascending spiritually instead of just staying here on the material plane, right, and tied to earth. Because that's, when we talk about the lower zone and that people are tied to earth and they can't get into heaven, a lot of that is because they're just so entranced with their own material goods, and fact, I've been at a mediums meeting where this woman was, and there was a Rio de Janeiro, and this woman said, she came to a medium, and the medium says, Zika, 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 and she go, and then the consoling medium comes over and talks to the medium who has the spirit within their body. He goes, what's going on? He goes, I died from Zika. I can't believe. I remember that was a virus a couple of years ago, and I can't believe I died because I didn't want to die from Zika. I wanted someone else to die. I wanted that other lady to die. I wanted her to die from Zika, and now I'm dead from Zika. And it was, it's just, you hear these things. It's amazing how the spirit world works. He goes, well, no, you're passed over now, right? You should forgive everybody. He goes, no. I still want that other lady to die from Zika. It's like, it just shows you. Some people just, she has, for some reason, I don't remember what it was. She wanted revenge or enviness or something from that other lady. And her deepest desire was that other person die. Of course, what did the spirit world helped her in desire, right? Because they're helping her learn something. No, you're going to die from Zika. And, when you think something ill, we'll just show you what that does. That's how the spirit world works, right? It's, you never know how things work. Some things what you can think are the worst thing that happened to you are really the best thing that happens to you. And I talk about that in my book. The problem is the solution. That these things happen to you for a purpose, to teach you that what you've done before in the previous life, even though you may not remember it, and it's not your fault really, as we think here on earth. But actually, they're not punishing you. They're just teaching you that. Now, you know what you did before? We're going to show you how other people felt of what you did to them. And then you can learn from that, never do that again. And that will help shape your personality. So again, you can see that on my website, nwspiritism.com. You go down on the right side on the books. The problem is the solution. Again, I want to thank everybody. I've taken up a whole hour already today. It's gone so fast. I want everyone to know that you are totally loved by the spirit world. You are guided. You are watched. You cannot believe what is occurring around us that we can't see. And if you just open yourself up and you look at the signs and signals, and I talk about that in my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism, right? What are the signs? This is more of a personal thing, what happens to me and how I saw everything. It's all around us, but you just kind of have to relax and watch and then start interpreting things a little bit different. Start interpreting things like, oh, this is terrible happening to me. It's like, okay, what's that trying to tell me? I'm not quite understanding yet, but think about it. So again, I want to say God bless everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of July, wherever you are in the world. And I know we have people watching from all around the world. I do want to ask everybody, tell people about Spiritism, tell people about my blog, nwspiritism.com. Share this video. Also know that this video, I copy this, I put it onto my YouTube channel. So if you go to my blog, nwspiritism.com, there's a link to my YouTube channel. I have all of these videos. I have more videos. I have a lot of other shorter videos explaining parts about Spiritism, 4 to 5 minutes or whatever type videos. I have also my lectures and other things I have. I have about over 80 videos on there talking about different aspects of Spiritism. So if you like, it all depends. I'm trying to put this out. If you like YouTube, I love YouTube for, many things. Or you like reading books, there's all sorts of different avenues for you to get into. And believe me, Spiritism will help raise you to the 10,000 foot level. You'll look at your life a little bit different. And the things that seem so immediate and concerning is like, okay, this is just one more little obstacle I have to go through. I know it's easy for me to say. It's harder to act in practice. Believe me, I understand that completely. I want to bless everyone out there, and I'll put the end credits now for us. I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in the direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw as in Northwest Spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest,
I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.